Kenmore's On and Awa by Robert Burns. This is better known as Ken Muir's On and Awa. That was the version he sent to his publisher. I'm doing the early draft, which, as usual with Burns, has some better lyric choices. So, the reference is to Viscount Kenmure William Gordon, who led the Southern rebels in Scotland in the Jacobite Rebellion of 1715 in October. And he was beheaded for his troubles the following February. O Kenmore's on and awa, Willie. O Kenmore's on and awa, Willie. And Kenmore's lord's the bravest lord that ever Galloway saw, Willie. O Kenmore's raised a band, Willie. O Kenmore's raised a band. There's ne'er a hairt that fears a Whig that rides by Kenmore's hand, Willie. Here's Kenmore's health in wine, Willie. Here's Kenmore's health in wine, Willie. There ne'er was a coward o' Kenmore's blood, nor yet o' Gordon's line, Willie. O Kenmore's lots are men, Willie. O Kenmore's lots are men, Willie. Their hearts and swords are metal true, and that their faes shall ken, Willie. They'll live or die with fame, Willie. They'll live or die with fame. But soon in victory may Kenmore's Lord come hame, Willie. Here's him that's far awa, Willie. Here's him that's far awa. And here's the floor, the bonny sweet floor, the rose that's like the snow, Willie. Here's him that's far awa. Sometimes these Scottish constructions, they leave out the word to. Here's to him. It's like a listen in the linnet, listening to the linnet. So I think that phrasing comes from the Gaelic, actually. Anyway, so the version published in the Scots Musical Museum for the last line has, and here's the flower that I loo best, the rose that's like the snow. So here's him that's far awa. That ending is a reference to the exiled Stuart king. And the rose that's like the snow is the white cockade, symbol of the House of Stuart. So it's a song about keeping the memory of a martyr alive, so you keep the dream alive. And the tune I'm using, so here's the other thing about this lyric, and I have a confession to make because this is quite a scholarly, faithful production I'm doing, but with Burns there's an exception to everything. Almost invariably his early drafts are better than the later ones. I have, I think, 67 songs with as an earlier draft. You can compare, and 66 of them I'm preferring poetically. But one of them actually fixed a scanning syllable problem. So that was an exception. The exception here is that while he was writing this draft, Burns crossed out some better lines. Um, I think they're better lines, and I'll tell you what they were. For his second verse, he has success to Kenmore's band, success to Kenmore's band. There's no a heart that fears a Whig that rides by Kenmure's hand. So instead of saying, oh, Kenmore's raised a band, which sets the scene, you're already drinking to him, success. And then the next verse becomes sort of redundant. Here's Kenmore's health and wine. It doesn't really. And the other thing is, there's ne'er a heart that fears a Whig that rides by Kenmure's hand. All those beautiful R's and ne'er and heart, the way they rhyme in Scots. He changes that to there's no a heart that fears a Whig. So anyway, I'm preferring the initial impulse there. But he did cross out Kenmore's raised a band, those two lines, and write in success. So it's not a later revision. And I'm taking a liberty there, but when I publish the book, I'll print it the way he wrote that draft. The tune is in the Scots Musical Museum. I've taken it from an alternate source, which is John Hall's selection of strathspeys, reels, waltzes, and Irish jigs. Printed and sold by John Hall in his music room in Ayr in 1818. So the song is from that area, and Burns is from that area. And I just think it's a slightly more interesting set of the melody. There was some version of this song that existed. So it's cast doubt on whether Burns wrote this. I think he wrote it. It's extremely polished in his language. But the thing is, there was a book published in... Also, the tune in Hall has Kenmore as the name, not Kenmure, as later sets tend to have. So Burns's early draft had Kenmore also. Fine points here with all this detective work. But in 1810, a book was published by Robert Cromek and Alan Cunningham. Cunningham was a noted fraudster who unfortunately contributed some original ballads to that book, which kind of marred an important collection of folklore. It's hard to know what to make of that book. But this song is in there. It was collected from a Mrs. Copeland, and it had essentially these verses, somewhat out of order, interpolated with three other verses, which clearly came from some different version of the song, which I'm sure did exist before Burns's, but they're nothing like these. And her verses that are like these just seem to be a sort of almost remembered version of this exact song, which had been published in 1792. So my thought is that this should be credited to Burns. And faes, of course, are foes. Him that far was the exiled king. That's the song. And we'll move along.